now we're in 2024, almost 2025, and um, the market is so saturated. It seems like there's so many clubs. What are some things that you would advise parents and athletes to look for when they're choosing a club?
Well, your people have to make a decision. Are you just looking for a place to play, or are you looking for a place to train and get better? If you're about the process, then you need to be the process of becoming a player. You need to first and foremost figure out whether this group is a teaching entity. Is this club a teaching and training entity? Would be my first thing I would look for. And just like everything else, shopping wise, I would look for reputation. What is the reputation? How long have they been around? What's their MO? I think that's critical. So many parents will say though that they're looking for a training opportunity, but playing time is what everybody's seeking. But I think if I had to pick two things that were important, I think training would be paramount, training, teaching, and then definitely reputation. What have they historically done? And, like I said, what's their MO? How do they handle certain situations? But it's really odd. People will spend an inordinate amount of time seeking or searching out a good plumber. And that guy's just coming in to fix your pipes, but they don't spend any time searching out, who's going to be taking care of my daughter for the next 8 years or at least 6 months. uh, it probably is worthy. It's a worthy event for a parent to look into it and figure it out. And it's not about winning. I would want my child involved in something that teaches the process of being a champion versus being a champion. It's, what the biblical phrase, teach a man to fish versus giving a man a fish. I think it's the same here. I would rather my child learn how to be a champion than necessarily throwing a team stacked up with a bunch of good players and being a champion.
And scrimmage all practice.
Yes, yes.
And what would you say some of the red flags are when you're evaluating a club?
I think promises would be one. The number of the number of parents, it's never the kid. Just keep that in mind. The number of parents that have asked for promises in the last 5 years is greater than the sum of all of the parents that have ever brought that up. You know, uh, if a guy looks at you and says, "I promise that your kid will play all six rotations," or "I promise that your kid will start," "I promise that your kid will be our L1 or our best player," I think that's a red flag because one, most people can't keep promises. Two, if I promise to play your daughter all six rotations, the only thing I can promise is she's never going to reach the level she could have and should have because there's no reason for her to really train hard. There's no reason for her to have skin in the game. And so I think my biggest red flag is all these guys promising. It's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I hear it all the time. Kids will go, "Well, this guy's promised us a national championship." That's interesting. I've won 9 of them, and here's what I know: it takes this, this, and this. And I also know that that guy has never won one. So it's kind of hard to promise what you've never had. I
Right.
think that if any red flag would be big for me, promises. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's fair to the club. I don't think it's fair to the kids in the club, and I definitely don't think it's fair to the kid that's being promised.